How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse, and I am the curator for the Golden Age, and this is another...
Lost Heroes of the Golden Age.
Yes, this is Lost Heroes of the Golden Age, and this time...
Happened to find him?
No, I didn't actually stumble upon this guy. This is one that I've wanted to do for a while, and I figured since we're rounding out Timely Month a little late, I'd finally go over this character.
Why did you wait so long to review him?
One of the reasons I waited this long is I thought that he had more of an impact on the Golden Age than he actually did. Like with Citizen V, I thought that due to a lot of his retconning, there was more that he did. He actually had a very limited appearance, and it's just somebody I figured it was finally time to go over. He didn't have any powers. He started off with an interesting premise that quickly changed. Booming thunder from his voice, which it didn't really seem to do anything. I mean, he's going by the Thunderer. He's got thunder cracking voice and a light gun that flashes like blasts of lightning, but overall, there wasn't too much done with him, which is probably why they didn't go on for very long with him. He assumed another identity before going out of the Golden Age, and in Marvel proper, they called him a completely different superhero altogether. So if you didn't know him, you might be confused by who they're actually talking about. But it was all the same person. So let's go over this hero, and you can get a little bit more info about who he is and what he did, and I don't have too much to say. So let's go over this Lost Heroes of the Golden Age with the Thunderer. The Thunderer, Jerry Carstairs, first appeared in Daring Mystery Comics number 7 in 1941. The publisher is, of course, Timely, and he was created by John Compton and Carl Burgess. Now, he only had 3 appearances in the Golden Age, but only 2 appearances as the Thunderer. Now, let me go over that real quick. In Daring Mystery Comics number 7 and 8, he would appear in his stories of the Thunderer. And then he would appear in All Winners Comics number 6, but for some reason, he was known as the Black Avenger in that. Same basic costume setup, but he wasn't the same person. Now, he also, for a while, well, at least one issue, was known as the Black Avenger, but that was in 2019 Marvel Comics number 1000, when they were talking about the mask that he wears. Now, they say that he wears the Eternity Mask, and I believe that is a retcon. But there were a number of characters in the Golden Age that wore a mask that was similar to this, so it was talking about how a mask was passed down from individual to individual, but as I said, I believe it's a retcon, because they never mentioned the Eternity Mask in any of these early stories. And Jerry Carstairs didn't have any powers. He was good to hand-to-hand combat, and he knew a bit about electronics. In the first story, they talk about the equipment that he wears with his outfit. He puts on a combination mic and horn set around his neck. Now that allows his voice to come out sounding like a crack of thunder with everything he says. But it only seemed obvious that he was doing this in the first appearance. It didn't see it in the second appearance, and in the third appearance he was somebody different. One of the strange things I've noticed about him as being the Thunderer is he had kind of an inverted costume color change from his cover appearance to his actual appearance. On the cover here, you see he's got the entire blue outfit with the red belt, red cuffs, and red leading into blue on his cape. And in the mask, you can see the red eyes and nose. But in the actual comic, he's wearing an entire red outfit where he does have blue boots, blue belt, blue cuffs, and the cape is blue leading into the red. Now, I can't find a reason for the palette switch. I think the story was actually done before the covers, and that's usually the case. A lot of times you'll have stories written and the covers will come out later on, but none of the other characters that appear on the covers of 7 or 8 have inverted costumes, so it didn't make any sense. Now, he did have the 2 cover appearances and the 1 featured story, and there's not too much to go about. Not too much more about him. He did have a couple of guest appearances in Marvel proper, and in 2019 they talked about him being the Dark Avenger, which I think they meant to say Black Avenger, but I can't explain why they wouldn't say it, and I can't find any explanation to why they changed him to the Black Avenger. He could have just been the Thunderer. It would have been fine. Now, as the Black Avenger, he has a different costume as well. He is wearing the... he's got the blue suit, but in this one, he's got purple boots, purple gloves, which he didn't wear gloves before. He only had cuffs. So the cuffs are purple, and the cape and cowl are also purple, but he has the mask with the white features of the eyes and nose. But I don't understand the name change. It didn't happen very often in the Golden Age. I mean, you could bring characters back and you would still give them the same name as they had before. In his first appearance, he fights Nazis. In his second appearance, he goes after criminals. In his third appearance, he breaks up a Nazi spy ring. And besides being excellent in hand-to-hand combat and understanding how radios work, which you'll see that in the first appearance, there's not too much more to go into him. I think in his retcon stories, they made his powers to be stronger than what they show in the Golden Age. So let's go over his first appearance, and then you'll get a better idea of what they were going with. And the first story is pretty short. One more thing I forgot to mention. In his appearance as the Thunderer, he did wear a gun on his side, and it was a lightning gun. It flashed out bolts of light. In his third appearance, he didn't wear a gun on his side, despite in 2 panels he actually had a gun. He didn't go out of his way to kill the enemies, but he wasn't trying to preserve their life either. So let's go ahead and get into the first appearance. The Thunderer by Carl Burgess and John Compton. We give you the Thunderer, mighty enemy of all those who would deprive us of those principles we hold so dear: liberty, justice, and equality. Well, I didn't realize we had Captain America. Okay, so we see some headlines in here concerning the FCC, and since this happens, he happens to work with radio, it makes sense the FCC would be in there. New powers planned for the FCC at the German Embassy in Washington, D.C. I didn't know we had a German embassy in the Golden Age. Especially when we were at war with them. Okay. So these guys are, so gentlemen, let us drink to the success of our first phase of our plan. And, hail Hitler. And they hear sounds of thunder, a blinding flash. And the Thunderer, as you were, rats. And you see how he has this outline in his word bubble, and that's supposed to let us know that he's talking with a thunder in his voice, which you don't see in the other 2 stories. Of course, in the third story, he's not the Thunderer. So. Okay, so he comes in here and he starts to... he's basically moving around like Spider-Man. He's swinging from the chandelier, grabs one guy, throws him across the room. He's making wisecracks while he's doing it. Ever play Crack the Whip? And he's just tossing them left and right, beating them all up. Well, that finishes that. One more small detail there. That gets them off foreign soil, and this note should explain everything, the note. To the FBI, these are the men responsible for the theft of the Garland airplane plans. Complete evidence is in the mail. The Thunderer. Okay, that ends the night's work. I mean, I'm surprised that we had a German embassy to begin with back then. Anyways. So he goes back, let's see, the next day at a listening station of the FCC offices in Washington, we find Jerry Carstairs absorbed in his routine job. Nothing wrong with this wavelength. That sounds like a very boring job. His friend comes in and shows him the newspaper, Thunderer Smashes Spy Ring. That's what you do in the third issue. So he meets up with this girl of his, and she is enamored with the Thunderer. Isn't he wonderful? Why don't you do something like that instead of being satisfied with your humdrum life? So you want your boyfriend to go ahead and put his life in danger? That's so caring of you. God, these women in the golden age who get infatuated with the hero and then blame their man for not putting his life in danger, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so he takes her out to dinner. He takes her out to dinner and find out that she is writing for the newspaper. When I started writing about these spies 2 years ago, they called me an alarmist, but all I've said has come true. So she's writing about the fifth columnist. Of course, if you're German in the German embassy, I don't think you would actually be a fifth columnist at that point. I think to be a fifth columnist, you have to be not associated with the Nazis, even though you are assisting them. I believe that's what would qualify as a fifth communist. So we see Jerry returning to his apartment, and he has a puppy. Looks like a golden. So he turns on to his ham radio and suspects that there are broadcasts coming. Secret messages are being broadcast through. The piano hasn't come on. I've still got some time to connect. So he hooks up his device and he starts translating the. So he hooks up a telegraph machine to the radio while it's transmitting through tuning forks. This is a sophisticated get-up. So he's able to decipher the plans through the music on the device that he's been able to set up. Okay, here's a good description of it. With the tuning forks responding to the musical notes C and F, the transmitting their vibrations to the pair of electromagnets controlling the telegraph key, Jerry is able to transcribe the message in Morse code transmitted by clever piano playing. Jesus, how did they come up with something like this? Now, normally when I see something like this set up in the golden age, I like to do some research to see if something like this is possible. I know a little bit about how tuning forks work with electromagnetic currents, so I'm actually going to go out and say that as sophisticated as the setup is, I believe that there's a scientific basis for this. I learned about the art of tuning forks when I took musical class. Okay, so he deciphers the whole thing. Act on plans made to dispose of Conroy Girl. Suspect her of exposing Garland facts to the Thunderer. That would be the Gary's sweetheart. Good Lord, I knew this would happen. I've got to do something. So you transcribed this whole note and wrote everything down and didn't get alarmed until after you finished writing it? You weren't alarmed while writing it? I mean, I would have been like, as he's transcribing, good Lord, they're going after her. No, you don't do that until after you finish writing everything down. Okay. So, we lack an origin story, but we see a little bit about him hooking his costume up here. If anything happens to her, I'll never forgive myself. Jerry puts on a combination mic and horn set around his neck. I love this part. He starts talking the first half of his sentence, but it won't happen. And he dons his costume. And he's already on the roof with the booming voice, if the Thunderer can help it. Can you imagine just seeing this from the outside? You see the Thunderer on the roof suddenly saying, if the Thunderer can help it. Out of context, this guy looks completely nuts. Let's see. he goes to her office. She's working late tonight. That means she should be here. She's all alone. Why weren't you with her? That is a pretty interesting mask. Okay. Suddenly the Thunderer bursts through. Who are you? Who? Really? You were talking to your boyfriend about how great you thought the Thunderer is. And he is in your office and you don't know what he looks like? You were just telling your boyfriend to be more like this hero. I'm here to help you. I'm the Thunderer. Oh, she looks so enamored. How did you not know that was the Thunderer to begin with? He's been in the paper for weeks. Okay, while outside the press room door, the thugs were listening. Thunderer, huh? Then Franz was right. She does know him. So much better we can dispose of both of them. So they bust into the office, and as soon as they bust in, he blasts his light ray to blind them and starts knocking them out. Let's see. I could go for him in a big way. Oh, if Jerry were only like that. Oh my God, she's just fawning over this guy while he's beating up the bad guys. Women in the Golden Age, I swear. Okay, so she takes the photos and then she leaves. And I guess it's to get them developed because in the last panel, we see her rushing in with these photos. Let's go over this last page. Oh, something's coming. I can't waste time looking for her. She can explain about these guys. I thought you were here to save her. You're not going to go look for her now that she's disappeared? Meanwhile, I've never seen you so excited before. You'd be excited too if you knew what I had. Develop these plates. Later. Here you are, Chief. And what a shot. Who is this? How does nobody know who the Thunderer is, even though he's been in the newspapers? That mister is the Thunderer. Now, do I get a raise? Raise, you'll get more than that. You'll get a bonus. What a scoop. The next day. So, he's been in the paper for weeks and nobody knew what he looked like? The next day. See, there's a man for you. Why can't you be more like him? Oh my God. So, constantly fighting bad guys and putting his life in danger. Yeah, that should really be what your boyfriend's focus is. Why, that's easy. I'd rather hear you tell me much more. It's like, why can't you be like him? Why, that's easy. I'd rather hear you tell me how much you like him. She's confused and questioning. The Thunderer roars into action again next month in Daring Comics. And in the next issue, he says he'll appear in the next Daring Comics, which there is nothing after number 8. Well, it's Daring Mystery Comics. Anyways, there's the Thunderer. I hope you liked this one. I hope you found it interesting enough. That's going to end Timely Month. We've got DC Month coming up. We're going to have some really good ones. I'm not going to do villains again unless that's something that people want to see me do more with DC. But no, we're going to be doing some heroes. So until next time, I'll be seeing you.